Welcome to Bold English Speakers. Unlock your confidence, master English.
So you study your flashcards for hours, right? You memorize the verb conjugations, you learn all the complicated grammar rules.
Oh, yeah, the classic approach.
Exactly. But then the second a real live conversation actually starts, your brain just completely freezes.
It's just a total blank.
Right. And it's like a universal frustration. It's like you've spent years meticulously studying the blueprints of a bicycle,
Right.
memorizing the tension of every single spoke, but the very moment you try to actually ride the thing, you just immediately fall over.
Which makes total sense because, well, reading a schematic and physically balancing on two wheels require entirely different cognitive networks.
Okay, wow, yeah.
And that gap, the gap between academic theory and real-time practice, that is exactly where millions of language learners find themselves permanently stuck.
Well, today we are doing a deep dive into a really fascinating stack of linguistic research to figure out exactly why your brain short-circuits during conversation and how to actually fix it.
It's a great stack of sources, too.
Yeah, we're pulling insights from Cambridge University press papers on the lexical approach, alongside some major academic studies on cognitive load and metacognition.
Right. Metacognitive strategies are huge here.
They really are. And just so you know, the ultimate mission of this deep dive isn't to, give you better flashcards.
No, definitely not.
It's to figure out how to shift from that slow, painful process of mechanical memorization to fundamentally rewiring your psychology for real-world fluency.
Yeah, because to do that, we have to look at language not just as a static subject to be graded on.
Right.
We have to treat it as a psychological and physical skill to be acquired.
Okay, so let's unpack the psychology first, because before we even look at a single vocabulary word, we really need to understand the mechanism behind that dreaded brain freeze.
Absolutely.
Because I think we tend to blame ourselves, right? Thinking, oh, I just haven't studied hard enough.
Oh, constantly.
But the research points out this massive, very well-documented gap between what we know and what we can actively use.
Yeah, lexicographer Susie Dent actually highlights a striking statistic about this.
Oh, right, the passive versus active vocabulary thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
She points out that the average native adult speaker has a passive vocabulary, meaning, the words they can easily understand when reading or listening, of about 40,000 words.
40,000? That's a lot.
It is. But their active speaking vocabulary, like the words they can actually summon and use in daily conversation, is only about 20,000 words.
Wait, so it's literally half.
Literally half.
So why is that gap so massive? Why can I read a French newspaper perfectly fine, but then I start sweating when the waiter just simply asks me what I want to drink?
It really comes down to the neurology of recognition versus retrieval.
Okay, break that down for me.
Sure. So recognition, which is your passive vocabulary, relies on external cues. When you read a word, the text acts as a trigger, firing a direct neural pathway to the meaning.
So the word is already there on the page doing the work for you.
Right. It requires very little cognitive energy. Retrieval, however, is your active vocabulary.
And that's much harder.
Way harder. That requires pulling a concept out of thin air, finding the correct phonetic label for it, and then, organizing the muscles in your mouth to produce it, all without any external hints.
So if you're listening to this and beating yourself up because your speaking lags so far behind your reading, you're actually just experiencing standard human neurology.
Yeah, it is completely normal. It is the default human condition.
That makes me feel a lot better, honestly.
Right. But, for a language learner, the ultimate question is how to bridge that gap and activate those passive words.
Yeah, how do we fix it?
Well, the metacognitive research suggests this begins with adopting a fluent identity.
A fluent identity, okay.
Yeah. Metacognition is essentially thinking about your own thinking. It's how you monitor and evaluate your learning. And a core strategy here is consciously flipping your internal script.
So you have to stop telling yourself, my Spanish isn't very good, or I'm terrible at English.
Exactly. The coaching guides really emphasize that you must consciously start telling yourself, I am a fluent speaker in progress.
Okay, wait. Claiming I'm a fluent speaker before I can even, order a coffee without stuttering just feels like fake it till you make it.
I know it does sound like that.
Isn't that just a hollow psychological trick?
It is a psychological trick, but it is a neurologically necessary one.
Really? How so?
Well, the brain is incredibly pragmatic. It allocates more metabolic resources and builds faster neural connections when it expects to use the information in the real world, like for survival or social connection.
Oh, wow. So if I identify as someone who is inherently bad at languages...
Then your brain operates with a defense mechanism.
Right.
You'll hesitate, you'll avoid speaking, and you'll wait until you feel a sentence is grammatically flawless before even opening your mouth.
Which just paralyzes you. So by adopting a fluent identity, you remove the performance anxiety.
Exactly. Making mistakes stops being a source of deep personal shame, and instead, it just becomes a necessary mechanism for your brain to gather immediate feedback.
Okay, so psychologically, we've stopped judging ourselves, and we've adopted this fluent identity. We are out of our own way.
Right.
But mindset alone won't stop your brain from stalling if the mechanical engine of your memory is broken.
No, it won't.
So what physically happens in our working memory when we try to force a sentence out in a new language?
To understand that physical stall, we have to look at cognitive load theory.
Right, cognitive load.
Think of your working memory like a computer's RAM. It has a strict biological limit on how much novel information it can hold and manipulate at one time.
Okay, makes sense.
And cognitive load theory distinguishes between two types of mental effort: intrinsic load and extraneous load.
Let's start with intrinsic.
Intrinsic load is just the natural, unavoidable difficulty of the material itself, like learning that a table is feminine in French.
Okay, and extraneous load.
Extraneous load is the unnecessary mental effort caused by the way you are trying to perform the task. It's the friction in the system.
Which brings us to the ultimate extraneous load, right? Translating word for word in your head.
Precisely. And there's a brilliant study from the International Journal of Humanities and Social Science Invention that demonstrates this perfectly.
Oh, right. The essay study.
Yeah. So they had students write essays in a second language, and the researchers split them into two groups.
Okay.
One group was allowed to use native language dictionaries, essentially encouraging them to form thoughts in their mother tongue and translate as they wrote.
And the other group?
The second group was instructed to write directly in the target language. No dictionaries and absolutely no translating.
Now, intuitively, you'd assume the dictionary group would just crush it because they have this massive safety net.
Most people assume that. But the methodology revealed a massive bottleneck in the brain's RAM. The group that relied on translation experienced severe cognitive overload. I mean, they had to hold a complex thought in their native language, search for the target vocabulary, recall the abstract grammar rules of the new language, and then try to match them all up.
Oh man, their working memory must have completely maxed out.
It did. This led to a total breakdown in fluency and surprisingly poor sentence construction.
Wow. You know, if you've ever felt a literal physical headache coming on while trying to speak a new language, this is exactly what's happening to your working memory.
Oh, absolutely.
It's like standing at home plate in a baseball game. The pitcher throws a 90-mile-per-hour fastball.
Right.
You can't stand there trying to consciously calculate the complex physics of the trajectory and, like, the wind resistance and the velocity in your head.
No, of course not.
By the time you do the math, the ball is already in the catcher's mitt. You just have to swing.
That analogy perfectly illustrates the difference between processing speed and real-time action. Because when you translate in your head, you are doing the physics calculations instead of just swinging the bat.
So the core takeaway from the cognitive load research is that you must completely drop the mental dictionary.
Yes, you have to force yourself to bypass that translation process and think directly in the target language.
Even if your direct thoughts feel incredibly rudimentary at first, like the sources suggest starting by just narrating your daily life in your head using simple, direct concepts.
Right, simple things.
Like, I'm tired, or where is my phone, or the coffee is hot.
Exactly. Because by doing that, you are training your brain's circuitry to retrieve the target language directly from your physical environment and your emotions.
Completely cutting out the middleman of your native language.
You got it.
Okay, so we drop the mental translation to avoid crashing our RAM. But if we aren't translating word by word, how do we actually build the speed to formulate complex thoughts directly?
That is the million-dollar question. And the Cambridge University Press paper argues that we have to change the fundamental unit of language that we study.
This is such a cool concept.
It represents a monumental shift in modern language pedagogy. It's known as the lexical approach, which was originally pioneered by Michael Lewis.
So how does it work?
Well, to understand its power, look at the narrative arc of speed in communication. If you study a language by memorizing single, isolated words, think about the cognitive gymnastics required to speak.
It's a lot.
Right? First, you search your memory for a noun, then a verb, Then you have to access an abstract grammar rule.
Right.
Then you have to manually stitch those words together using that rule, all in real time, while someone is staring at you waiting for an answer.
Ugh, it's exhausting just thinking about it. You're basically building the bicycle from scratch every single time you want to ride it down the driveway.
It is incredibly slow and highly prone to error.
So how does the lexical approach solve this?
It solves it by moving away from single words and focusing entirely on chunks.
Chunks.
Yeah, chunks are formulaic sequences, collocations, or fixed expressions. When you learn language in chunks, you retrieve the entire phrase from your memory as a single prepackaged block.
Oh, so you aren't building the bike, you're just grabbing a fully assembled bike and pedaling.
Exactly.
And the Cambridge paper actually backs this up with a staggering statistic. Nearly 60% of all spoken language is entirely formulaic.
Yes, 60%.
So native speakers aren't doing real-time grammar calculations for every sentence either.
Or not at all. They rely on a vast mental library of these pre-constructed chunks.
And this gives learners a huge advantage, right?
Two massive benefits, actually. First is fluency, because retrieving a single chunk requires far less cognitive load than assembling 5 individual words.
Makes sense.
And second is idiomaticity. You actually sound natural rather than sounding like a clunky textbook translation.
Yeah, and the sources give some fantastic concrete examples of these high-frequency chunks, especially for workplace conversations.
Those are the best examples.
Right, so instead of learning the isolated word result and trying to figure out which prepositions go around it, you learn the entire chunk as one unit. As a result of.
Yes.
Or you learn phrases like to some extent or the reason why.
Exactly.
They even highlight thought group chunks used in meetings. You don't build the sentence word by word, you drop a chunk. We'll review the action items. You pause, then you drop the next chunk and plan the next steps.
You are memorizing the entire string of words as one singular concept.
But hold on, if I'm just memorizing massive blocks of text, aren't I just repeating things like a parrot?
It's a very common, very valid skepticism.
Like, how do I ever formulate an original creative thought if I never focus on the underlying grammar?
Well, linguists explain that these chunks actually act as a starter pack for your brain. It utilizes top-down processing.
Meaning what, exactly?
Think about how a child learns their native language. A toddler doesn't learn the pronoun I, the auxiliary verb do, the negative particle not, and the verb no.
No, they definitely don't.
They just learn the chunk, I don't know, as a single sound that gets them a specific result.
Ah, they use the whole block first.
Exactly.
Wow.
And over time, after using that chunk and hearing it in dozens of different contexts, the brain naturally and subconsciously begins to analyze it.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Right. It unpacks the grammar within that chunk and recognizes the pattern on its own. You get the immediate fluency and confidence of the chunk on day one, and the grammatical creativity develops organically from those chunks over time.
Okay, so we've adopted our fluent identity, we've dropped the mental translation, we are armed with our library of prepackaged chunks.
Yes, looking good so far.
But if I deliver those chunks like a robotic GPS navigation system, a native speaker is still going to have trouble understanding
Oh,
it.
definitely, because you haven't mastered the music of the language.
The music, let's talk about that.
In linguistic terms, that music is called prosody. Prosody encompasses the rhythm, the stress patterns, the intonation, and the overall melody of spoken language. If you ignore prosody, even perfect grammar and vocabulary will sound deeply unnatural.
And linguists point out a massive hurdle here, specifically with English, because English is what's called a stress-timed language.
Right.
This is a huge shift if you are coming from a syllable-timed language like French or Spanish, where almost every syllable gets roughly the same amount of time and weight.
Exactly. But in English, the rhythm is dictated by emphasizing the content words, the heavy nouns and verbs that carry the actual meaning.
Right.
And to keep the beat steady, we squish down all the little function words in between.
We aggressively reduce those function words, the prepositions, the articles, the conjunctions.
Yes, and we often reduce their vowels into a soft, incredibly brief sound called a schwa.
Okay, let's anchor that for a second because the schwa is everywhere.
It really is.
It's that lazy sound. Say the word about. You don't clearly pronounce it about. You say ooh about.
Yeah.
That lazy ooh is the schwa, and English rhythm is entirely built on it.
So instead of clearly enunciating every word like, I'm going to the store, an English speaker glides over the function words to keep the beat. They say, I'm going to the store.
Right. The rhythmic stress lands heavily on going and store, and everything else becomes a schwa.
Exactly.
But trying to learn rhythm by reading a textbook is like trying to learn how to swim by reading a physics manual. You have to physically feel the water.
You do.
So how do we actually train our mouths to do this?
The sources highlight a highly effective technique studied by researcher Puent-Yi Nguyen, known as shadowing.
Shadowing. What is that?
Shadowing is an intensely active cognitive exercise. You take an audio recording of a native speaker, you listen to it, and you vocalize the speech simultaneously.
Oh, wow.
You track their speech and speak right over them, mimicking their exact rhythm, their pitch, and their pauses.
Wait, so you aren't just repeating after them, you are speaking at the exact same time.
Exactly. Nguyen's study demonstrated that this technique helps learners fundamentally internalize stress patterns because it bypasses the analytical semantic part of the brain.
That makes sense.
When you shadow, you aren't agonizing over the definition of the words. Your focus shifts entirely to the physical, muscular motor skills of producing the language.
And as a byproduct, it significantly reduces speaking anxiety.
Massively.
Because you aren't generating the thoughts yourself, you are just surfing the wave of the native speaker's voice.
Exactly.
There's also a massive takeaway here regarding pace. When we get nervous in a second language, we tend to speed up.
Oh, yeah. The nervous fire hose.
Yes, we unleash a fire hose of words, hoping the other person will just catch the meaning.
But slowing down your pace to about 140 to 160 words per minute and placing purposeful, heavy pauses between your chunks actually makes you sound dramatically more fluent.
Wait, slowing down makes you sound more fluent.
Absolutely. Because silence is a deeply powerful communicative tool. It gives you, the speaker, the necessary fraction of a second to retrieve your next chunk. And it gives your listener time to process the weight of what you just said.
It's like a musician realizing that the spaces between the notes are just as important as the notes themselves.
That's a perfect way to put it.
So we've covered the deep mechanics today: mindset, cognitive load, chunks, and prosody. But how do we practically rewire our brains with this? What are the actual daily routines?
Well, the overarching rule is that you must connect the language to your emotional interests and your existing daily habits.
Because the brain retains information that it cares about, and it thrives on routine.
Exactly. And the research outlines 3 highly specific daily activities to move you from academic study to actually living the language.
All right, let's hear them. Activity number 1 is this 3-part word chart, right?
Yes. When you come across a new phrase, you have to stop writing down the isolated word and its translation.
Because that is just rebuilding the mental dictionary we were trying to destroy.
Right. Instead, create a 3-column chart. In the first column, write the entire chunk, not the single word.
Okay.
In the second column, write the original context where you heard or read it. And crucially, in the third column, immediately write your own personal, emotionally relevant example sentence using that chunk.
So I'm making it about my life right away.
Neurologically, this anchors the new language to your own life and memories from the very first minute, making retrieval drastically faster.
Okay, activity number 2 is the 5-minute shadowing habit.
Yes. And you don't need a formal curriculum for this. Choose a short audio clip from a podcast you love or a YouTube video on a topic you're genuinely obsessed with.
All right.
Spend just 5 minutes shadowing the speaker. Mimic their melody, lean heavily into their chunks, and let your brain prioritize the rhythm over the meaning.
Awesome. And activity number 3.
Activity number 3 is where we fully integrate the Fluent identity. It's called the Daily Routine Speaking Journal.
A speaking journal. I like that.
The goal here is habit stacking. Take an automatic daily habit, something you do every single morning without fail, like brushing your teeth or making coffee, and link your language practice directly to it.
So while you are making that coffee, speak aloud to yourself.
Exactly. Narrate what you are doing using the new chunks you've acquired. Or simply look out the window and repeat your daily affirmation. I am becoming fluent every day.
But let's be totally honest about the learner's emotional journey here.
Yeah.
Because what happens when you are standing in your kitchen, making your coffee, you try to use your new chunks, and you just completely freeze again?
Yeah, the wall.
You stumble over the rhythm, you sound foolish to yourself, and that old frustration comes roaring right back. What then?
Well, that is the ultimate moment of truth in language acquisition. And the consensus from the experts is vital. You must remain curious, not critical.
Curious, not critical.
When you stumble, do not judge yourself as a biological failure. Instead, ask yourself, what did that mechanical breakdown just teach me?
Like, was the chunk too long for my working memory?
Exactly. Did I lose the stress-time rhythm? Making mistakes isn't a failure of the system. It is the system.
You have to embrace the courage to speak long, long before you are perfect, because perfection is the enemy of fluency.
It really is.
So, to wrap up this deep dive, we have fundamentally dismantled the old way of learning. You have to drop the mental dictionary to save your working memory from cognitive overload.
Yep.
You need to step into your fluent identity today, right now, even if it feels uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
You must abandon single words and leverage the prepackaged power of chunks. And you have to physically feel the music of the language through shadowing.
It is a totally holistic approach. You are no longer just memorizing data points for a test.
Yeah.
You're fundamentally altering how your brain processes reality and produces thought.
Which is incredible.
It is.
Well,
Which actually leaves us with a rather profound psychological question to consider.
lay it on us.
Well, if learning a language in chunks, adopting a completely new fluent identity, and fundamentally altering the physical rhythm and melody of your voice literally rewires your cognitive pathways.
Yay.
And if it changes the mechanical way you express your internal emotions to the outside world,
Okay.
does becoming fluent in a second language actually give you a second personality?
Wow. That is definitely something to think about the next time you're talking to yourself while making coffee. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Now it's time to put down the blueprints, get out there, and actually ride the bicycle. Start your first daily language habit today.